Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today's disc comparison, we have two very popular fairway drivers. We have the Cicada from Discraft, and we also have the Rhythm from Axiom discs. When it comes to the flight numbers, they are very similar. Both speed 7, Cicada one more glide than the Rhythm. Cicada also one less turn than the Rhythm's -2, and then both with that fade of 1. So at least flight numbers wise, these are pretty comparable. Now, when it comes to the profile, you can see the Rhythm has a much sharper rim as well as a lower shoulder, a very thin profile as well as a very flat flight plate, and the Cicada matches suit. A little bit blunter of a nose, but not by much. However, you can find both of these in domier versions, Fission for the Rhythm, and when it comes to the Cicada, the Crystal and the Jawbreaker Z-Flex. But both of these that we're going to be throwing today, they are very, very thin profiled. Now, it is worth noting that the Cicada does overall stand a little bit higher, but also has a narrower rim than the Rhythm. So for the comparison, let's go ahead and take a look at how both of these discs handle different shots. First, with hyzer flipping, the Cicada hyzer flips, gets to flat, rides incredibly straight, then just at the very end of the flight has just a little bit of a hyzer finish. The Rhythm, on the other hand, does the same thing, flips up, rides incredibly straight, but then has a bit harsher of a finish. Now, which one holds straighter? And this, you're really going to see how I feel the Cicada is just a little bit more understable than the Rhythm. You see just how straight the Cicada held almost all the way, about 80+% of the flight before it started to hyzer out. The Rhythm wants to follow suit, but right there, about 65-70% of its flight, it starts to hyzer out. So the Cicada, a little bit more understable, a little bit straighter when thrown at slower speeds. I throw about 320, 330 with a max distance driver. So at slower speeds, I do feel that the Rhythm is a little bit more on the overstable side than the Cicada. At least it's going to be something where it's going to fight out of a turn, or it's going to fight out of just a straight flight a bit sooner. Overall, though, I will have to say they do kind of hold very similar lines, as this is on the kind of more, again, for the slower speeds. You see the Cicada gets a bit of a panning turn, and then just that little baby hyzer finish towards the very end. And then on the Rhythm here, you're going to see it's going to match a pretty similar flight, but it's going to start hyzering out a lot sooner than the Cicada did. But now let's go to turnover shots. How do these both handle the turnovers? Does that extra stability for the Rhythm play a part? Well, with the Cicada, started on that little bit of an anhyzer line, and it holds almost all the way to the ground, just barely starting to level out as it reaches the ground, versus the Rhythm here. Yes, it's thrown just a little bit higher than the Cicada was, but you can see that it is leveling itself out and does actually start to hyzer back. But overall, they both held those turnover lines almost identical. When it comes to forehand, this is where you can really see just how much more understable the Cicada is, at least in the earlier parts of the flight, as you get a good panning turn when it's thrown on hyzer, and then just a baby hyzer finish at the end. The Rhythm, again, thrown a little bit of hyzer as well, flips up to flat, gets a very minuscule amount of a panning turn before having a bit harsher of a finish. Also worth noting, the Fission that I have, which is a near max weight, is a lot straighter. It doesn't get as much turn as its Neutron counterpart, but it also didn't have nearly as hard of a finish. But then for the Cicada, if you do want to have a more torque-resistant, overstable option for forehand, well, the Crystal Cicada does that, as it will hold straight and have a more harsher finish like the Rhythm does, but just be warned that even if you do throw it on a bit of an anhyzer, it's not overstable enough where it will still turn over and almost into an incidental thrower. So even with the Cicada in a little bit more torque-resistant plastic, the Rhythm still takes the edge for being better for bigger bombers who are throwing more that 375 plus range, because then you're going to really overcome the natural resistance to torque that the Rhythm in this Neutron has been showing. Now, for the lefty lines, kind of comparing a few of the different plastic types together, Yes, I apologize for the graphic error. That was a neutron rhythm to start. You saw it had a panning turn and then a harsh finish. The Z Cicada, it does match up very well, but I still think that the neutron rhythm kind of comes out of that turn a little bit sooner than the Cicada. The Jawbreaker Z Flex Cicada is a bit straighter than either the Z or the neutron rhythm. I think it's pretty reminiscent of what the Fission rhythm is, just a very straight, minimal turn, minimal fade, but then the Crystal is almost the more torque resistant of the group, at least when it comes to slower speeds, where it rides out very straight, almost no turn at all, and then has a harsh finish. Okay, so what does all this mean? Well, I think just overall, the Cicada is going to be more on the understable side. I think better for players with slower arms because it's something you don't have to put as much into it to get it to turn, to get it to hold a turn, to get it to hold incredibly straight. And it also is going to overall have the least amount of fade versus the rhythm is going to get that if you're a bigger thrower. If you're someone who throws at 375 up, your rhythm flight is going to probably match the Z Cicada that we've been seeing throughout this video. But it is worth noting the Cicada does come in a lot more plastic types that do have a bit more overstable options in them that better match what I was getting out of the rhythm. So again, you can really find the one that works best for your game. So overall, which one would I recommend to players? Well, don't think there's really any surprise with this decision. It is the Cicada, just because of how many different shots you can hit with it. Such versatility depending on the plastic. You can hit a lot of understable shots as well as those semi-overstable shots, just depending on the plastic. The rhythm, that is something you have to rip into at full power every single time to get these similar shots, at least if you're a slower arm speed player. So the Cicada, it has more forgiveness, more margin for error. But if you are looking for something with a little bit more of a semi-overstable flight, a little bit more bite, then the Cicada does have that Z-Flex Jawbreaker and the Crystal. Now, it's not to say that the rhythm is not a great disc. This is a fantastic disc, and I think it kind of, if you do throw the Cicada, maybe try the rhythm if you want a little bit more of like a wind fighter. If the wind is at 5 to 10 mile an hour, well then maybe the rhythm could be what you're looking for. Overall, both these fairway drivers were so much fun to throw. They complement each other well. Even though, yes, they're similar, I do think they're just different enough to really complement each other to where you almost could bag both, especially if you're a slower arm speed player. Well, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and smash that like button and share this video with your friends. Get those YouTube algorithms going. Also, be sure to visit GreatLakesDisc.com if you need to purchase any discs or any disc accessories. They have incredibly fast shipping, amazing customer service. You will not be disappointed. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you for the support. Till the next one, keep banging them chains.